Hello everyone, myself Dr. Vinay Gandal from KMC College Khopoli. Today I am going to talk about types of sampling. Dear student, as you know that as a researcher we have to select appropriate sampling for undertaking effective research work. Whenever researcher is going to undertake a research study or to investigate a research problem, he has to consider some respondents for collection of data. So even the results of the research or recommendation, suggestion of the research study is mostly depends upon the analysis done by the researcher. Okay. So analysis and interpretation, even testing of hypothesis is an important task of entire research activity. So in research activity, the analysis interpretation is based on whatever data collected by the researcher from the sources of data. So in the case of sources of data, there are many types of sources. Researcher may use different types of methods to collect data. So data collection also based on appropriate sampling design. So there should be a accurate or specific sampling design for effective research work, and researcher always need to consider the respondents as a sample, and it should be representative of whole population. So sampling is an important task of research activity. So today we have to understand different types of sampling and the meaning of sampling. Okay, so first of all we have to understand what actually sampling is. So normally sample is a group of people, it is an object or it is an item that are taken from a large population for measurement. In research study, researcher need to analyze, interpret or measure the data. So for measuring the problem or data, we have to collect, or researcher need to collect data from the selected sample, and normally sample is to be selected from a large population. So sample is a group of people or object or item that is taken from the population of the study. The sample should be always representative of the population to ensure that we can generalize the findings from the research sample to the population as a whole. So dear students, in entire research process there should be a selection of sample. It should, and sample should be representative. It should be representative for a whole population of the study. So while selecting sample, researcher need to consider universe of the study, population of the study, and then sample of the study. So selection of sample is very important from the researcher point of view. So proper care should be taken while selecting a sample for investigating the research problem. Okay. Now we have to understand different types of sampling. So dear students, there are two types of sampling, like probability sampling and non-probability sampling. What about probability sampling? In probability sampling, normally it is said that it is a sampling technique in which the subject of population get an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample. Means when we talk about probability sampling or in probability sampling, each object, each article or each item of research study have an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample for whole population. Okay, for example, in a classroom, suppose there are 100 plus students and researcher need to understand or undertake a study on that classroom. In that case, sometime researcher may be use different types of method for selecting a sample. When he is going to use probability sampling, then each group of student or each student in a class have an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample. So in the case, lottery system is oftenly used. So in the case of lottery system, each item or each object of a study or of a population have an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample. That is called as a probability sampling. Okay. Another type of sampling is non-probability sampling. In the case of non-probability sampling, it is normally said that it is a sampling technique in which each object, article of the study or population does not have an equal opportunity to be selected for representative sample of the population. It is a sampling method of population in which it is not known to which individual from the population will be selected as a sample. Okay, so for example, in a class, if there is a students more than 100, and if researcher want to study the awareness level among the students based on non probability sampling, so he has to select the students according to their reliability. So in this case, it is not known which sample or which students are to be selected for study as a representative sample. Okay, so this is the main difference between probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Okay, now there are different types of probability as well as non-probability sampling. So now we have to understand what are the different types of probability sampling. So first one type of probability sampling is called random sampling. So it is the sampling method in which sample is selected randomly from the population. So the in case of random sampling, researcher has to select sample as per his convenience randomly from the whole population or total population available for measurement of the study. Okay. Another type of probability sampling is a systematic sampling. It is the sampling method in which sample is selected by a system such as, for example, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20. So there is a systematic range of selection of a sample in systematic sampling. So whenever researcher is going to use some method, some system, and which is specific or consistent for whole sample, that is called as systematic sampling. So there is a some base for selection of sample as a representative sample for whole population. Okay. Third type of probability sampling is stratified sampling. So under stratified sampling, normally population is divided into homogeneous segment or group and then sample randomly selected for the study. So first of all, in this case, researcher need to consider whole population, and the population may be divided into number of groups or different groups or segments, and each segment, if researcher is going to select sample randomly as per his convenient, then such sampling technique is known as stratified sampling. So this is also oftenly used in research study. Fourth type of probability sampling is cluster sampling. So this is another important types of probability sampling in which different existing clusters will be selected and then sample from each cluster is to be selected randomly as per convenience of the researcher. Okay, only there is a difference between stratified and cluster sampling is that in stratified sampling population is divided into number of groups, and in cluster sampling the different existing clusters will be selected, means already existing groups are there. If there is a existing groups, there are existing clusters or segment, so researcher need to select randomly the sample from each cluster those are in existence. Okay, so these are the various methods of probability sampling, and depending upon the nature of study, researcher is required to consider any one method which is more suitable as per the requirement of research. Okay, another type of sampling, that is non-probability sampling. So in the case of non-probability sampling, as already I told that it is not known which individual or which group or which article or object will be selected for the study as a sample, representative sample for the whole population. Okay, so in the case of non-probability sampling, there are different methods. First one is convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is a sampling method in which sample is to be selected as a convenience of the research. So depending upon the need and requirement of the study, the researcher may select the sample as per his convenience to undertake the entire study. Okay. Another type of non-probability sampling is quota sampling. Normally, quota sampling is the sampling technique which is mostly concerned with group already selected for the study. For example, in a classroom there are different age groups, suppose 10 to 15, 15 to 20, or in a group there are different groups, that is male, gender wise groups are there, male, female. So according to the nature of data, there are many types of groups which already created by the researcher for undertaking a research work. So in that case, wherever there are already groups which are selected for the study, that is also known as quota sampling, and which is to be selected to undertake investigation of the research problem by collecting data from the quotas or groups of the population. Third type of non-probability sampling is a snowball sampling. So in the case of snowball sampling method, research participants recruit other members for the study. For example, if there is a one village and researcher is going to undertake a study on the awareness level among the village peoples regarding GST or whatever problem is there. So if it is not possible to collect data from all the respondents or all the persons, then researcher has to select any or few members for the study, and they may recruit these peoples to collect the data from other members. So in snowball sampling there are different, if data collection is difficult, then research participants recruits other members to collect the data from the members, means researcher can get the required data of concerned respondents from other members which is recruited by the research participants. Okay, last type of non probability sampling is judgment sampling. The judgment sampling is the technique which is normally based on the judgment or opinion of the experts. So it is one type of random sampling where sample selection is based on the opinion of experts. So whatever opinions of experts are there, researcher need to consider all these opinions, and based on the opinion or judgment of the expert in that particular research area, researcher has to select the sampling method or sample size, that is known as a judgment sampling. Okay, so these are the some methods of non-probability sampling, and researcher need to consider all these various methods while selecting the sample for collection of data. So dear students, in entire research work, sampling technique or sampling design is very important task from researcher's point of view. So researcher always consider various points and proper care should be taken while selecting such a samples, and researcher always consider there should be a representative sample, means sample should be representative for whole population. Even researcher need to consider universe of the study, population of the study, and then sample of the study for undertaking effective research work. Thank you.